Well, let's see. We got DrJack's on here. We don't want. Yeah. Can I turn it over to you, DrJack?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, one of the challenges is trying to make RailKing buildings look realistic because of the plastic. And made a couple comments about it last week. But what I like about the RailKing buildings is you can cut them and you can stack them and keep stacking them and make any kind of building you want. All right. So I'm going to just go through some of the surfaces. So this is how it came as far as the color. But what I did is one of the colors I like for brick is satin paprika. Sounds kind of like something you would eat. But although I don't always use Rust-Oleum, there are some that are really good on plastic. And they've got a whole series of paints that really dry and adhere extremely well to plastic. So I painted this surface with the satin paprika. So it's a little shiny. All right. Now I'm going to do Liz technique. And what I do is I make different colors of mortar and I get the deco art and you can make different combinations. Here is ivory and beige. And I just mix it up and you get these at Michael's. And then I dilute it with a little water. And then I take the brush. I think I'm in the field, right? Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's hard to tell, but I'll just do a little bit of this. And again, this technique was patented by Liz. So you have to be very careful and you have to pay her a, what is it, a royalty. Yeah. Whenever I mention her name, I've got to pay a royalty for this technique. And then you just take your good old paper towel and wipe it off. And the key is each time you swipe, change the paper so you don't keep toning it, causing a kind of a fog. But the nice thing, again, we learned from Liz is if it gets kind of foggy, you can fix that with your good old Del coat. So I've gone ahead and wiped this, and you can kind of see that I've got my mortar, right?
Right.
Yes.
Everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. But it's still shiny. So then what I do next, here is some dry, okay? Another piece that I did yesterday, and I let it dry. And now this is where I use my powders. And I use usually a little black and kind of a little kind of burgundy. But the key, I'm in the field, good, is I just flick a little bit on. You don't want to use much, okay? Just a little flicking because you don't want to ruin all that beautiful mortar. And then I get it off the brush, not using the same brush. And then I just slowly and lightly, and if I got too much, I blow it off. But I just want to streak it in there. And where you really want to get it is where dirt would normally collect, which would be in the top of a sill like that, and another top here, and kind of just lightly get it in. The other thing you can do, which is kind of neat, and the dull coat will take care of it, is flick it into where dirt would collect, and you don't even need to do anything fancy because when you spray the dull coat on, it'll kind of get it to fix in the crevices and look a little bit like it's dirt that is formed in there. And you can either kind of blow it in there so it kind of collects. Okay, we still got that image.
Yes.
That looks pretty good. Okay, so here is the other side, which I already did yesterday. And it's dry. And then what I did is I sprayed the whole thing with dull coat. And the dull coat gets the chalk to kind of blend in gently. And you can see how it's done a nice job on the sill and above the window and in here. And I think you've gotten rid of what used to look like a RailKing plastic toy into looking more like a realistic building. So 4 steps. First, paint it here paprika, but you can use anything. The next step was the patented Liz technique. And here I have my own mixture that I use for mortar, but you can make lots of combinations and wipe it off. And then the next step is to go ahead and sprinkle some chalk and then finish it off with the dull coat. And that's it. And it's pretty simple. And so you can take a building that, and the other nice thing about the RailKings is if you separate them, you can cut them on my bandsaw. And who has much fancier saws, you can make multiple buildings out of a RailKing. And here is the same process. Okay, I think that's showing pretty well. And just showing how it's gotten rid of that plastic look. First painted, then the mortar, and then go back with chalk and dull coat, obviously when the windows aren't in there. But it doesn't look anymore like a RailKing building. And the nice thing about the RailKing is with the lighting in the back, using the RailKing lighting. And again, because these screw together, you can make these buildings as tall as you infinitely want. But one of the keys is to paint it with your base coat once they're all screwed together, and then you don't see any separation here. But the way they usually screw together, it works really well anyways. And then I just cover it with some black paper, and then I've just got the connector for lighting it. So it really gets rid of that RailKing plastic look. So that's it. Definitely no Nobel Prize. Any questions?
Jack,
Jack,
show us the paint again.
Huh?
Show us the paint again you use for the mortar. What is it?
So the 2 colors I like, and you can mix them in any combination and change it. I like the ivory, deco art, and the beige. And if I want it a little lighter, I use mostly ivory. If I want it a little darker, I use mostly beige. And then I dilute it so it's easier to use. And then just put it in a nice medicine container and mix it up with a little water. You don't need much, but you want enough water in there that it wipes off easily and it gives you a nice mortar look. Now, if there's too much glazing and you think you want it with a little brighter look, this is where I'm going to kill my lungs, but I'm going to spray a little dull coat on here. And if you just take the dull coat and wipe, do you see how it's gone and it's gotten some of the white off the brick? Is that showing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you don't want to do too much because you'll get into the mortar. But again, Liz has showed me how to do this, and you can change the color with it. But you're still going to go ahead and do the chalk. The key is not using much chalk and just kind of flicking it on a little bit and gently getting it in the crevices and stuff, and then going back with the dull coat. And it really gives it totally gets rid of the RailKing look on the buildings.
Jack, question.
Yeah.
If you're starting out with the building, do you have to paint that first before you can use the mortar, or can you put the mortar right on it?
No, you can use the mortar on it, but I just like getting a slightly different color. This is the brown, how it came. Okay.
Right.
And I just like having this other color a little bit. But no, you could go straight to this.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had to like seal that finish on it first before you did that.
I have not had that problem, because once I do the mortar and then go back with the dull coat, it seems to work just fine.
So when you're done, you should always use the dull coat afterwards?
Yeah. Well, and what the dull coat does is it softens the chalk, gets rid of the sheen, because remember, this is going to be pretty shiny right afterwards, and you want to get rid of that plastic sheen. And that's where you saw me spread the chalk, but very lightly. But then by putting the dull coat on after you use the chalk, it makes the chalk just kind of blend in more. And it kind of makes it a little faded, but it also gets rid of any sharp edges of the chalk. And if you want to, because you've got the dull coat on here, I mean, if I wanted to, I could do a little more chalk, see, and I can make it darker if I want. And this chalk, as we talked last time, you don't have to do the dull coat again, because this chalk is self-adherent, especially when it bites into once you have the dull coat. So you can go back and even darken it a little more and make it a little more weathered.
If you're not using the chalk, do you still use the dull coat though?
Absolutely. It's too shiny otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah, got to do the dull coat. But I do the dull coat normally outside, as opposed to what I just did, where I inhaled it into my lungs so that I could do a really good demonstration. So if I wind up on a respirator, I'll blame all of you. But I have found what I like about these two colors is I don't need a million colors, because just by varying the percentages of the ivory and the brown, I can kind of come up with anything. Now, if you really want it light, you can add some of the white. The problem I have, and although I like it, is, and it works nicely, is Robert's brick mortar. It's white, and you rarely, you just don't see white mortar anywhere. Steve, you need to talk to him about coloring his mortar.
Hey, Jack.
Yeah.
What kind of brush do you use for the powders?
Oh, I like there. So you can get a whole set again from MicroMart. Should pay me. MicroMart sells a whole set of brushes, okay, for the dry powders.
Okay.
And they're great. But even if you don't use that, you can use these are the brushes that you get from MicroMart for dry brushing, and they sell a set of 4 different sizes, and they work really well too.
Or you can go to the dollar stores, and you can go to the ladies' cosmetics section, and you can buy all those brushes too.
Yeah. And I have several of those. That's it, folks.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jack.